do you think there's any way that like with Aljo goes in front of Tapiria though? Like you think if he like
Yeah, if he has a good performance, if he chokes O'Malley out in the first round, yeah.
you think
If
you
he
do it?
chokes him out, beats him up, TKOs him, yeah,
I feel like
he's
Volk is
jumping.
just set. I feel like Volk is just set on moving up after if he wins though. You know what I
I
mean?
think I think Volk likes that idea of, think about it.
Like the
There's so
Aljo
many
idea.
contenders at lightweight. Volkanovski, if I mean Dustin, Justin, they're going to be next in line. Charles next in line. I think Volk would like to take an easy matchup like Aljo and then just beat him up and then move up.
Has he even mentioned Aljo before though? Like I feel like
No, he's not mentioned him, but Aljo, if he has a good performance, main event, and he's, obviously got the hype. The UFC is going to be posting all about him. Everyone's going to be raving, "Oh, he's finally a good champion. Oh, I'm finally an Aljo fan." Like they'll be hyping him up, and he'll call Volk
Tapiria is
out, and
also.
Volk will look at that as an easy task, and he'll accept it, I think, or he'll move up to fight the winner of Islam and Charles.
If you're Volk, like, do you fight Tapiria though? Like do you take the Tapiria fight or do you just like,
If I'm Volkanovski, I just think like, dude, it's either Tapuria if Aljo doesn't have a good performance against O'Malley, or you move up, or it's Aljo or Tapuria, and then you move up. So the only way he fights Tapuria is if Aljo doesn't have a good performance against O'Malley, and then he's going to want another contender because he might not be able to move up instantly. If he fights Aljo, he probably won't fight Tapuria because I think that he'll definitely want to move up. And by then, there's going to be another guy besides Tapuria. It's like there's always going to be contenders at that point. So I think that I think it's possible. Again, like I think Tapuria could be next if Aljo doesn't put on Aljo doesn't move up and the UFC doesn't want it, it'll be Tapuria. But either way, I don't think Volk moves up after beating Yair. I think he'll have one more, just because
like
Islam's not nearly as active as any of these other guys, and Islam's going to definitely fight Charles. It's a big fight, and then he'll take some more time off. So
I feel like I don't know why. I feel like Volk is gonna move up no matter what if he wins. Like I feel like he just like I feel like that's better for his career even, I think like those matchups are bigger money fights at this point,
they are bigger money fights. That's true. And they definitely would
like
get him more excited than continuing to fight like a guy moving up to bantamweight, and for sure.
And I don't
But
know
as I said, like Islam might not give him the opportunity because again, Islam's not fighting 3 times a year.
he doesn't
He's
need
gonna
to
fight.
fight Islam though. He could fight the winner of Gaethje Poirier, and that could be a huge fight too.
I think Volk's the kind of guy to do that. Take a
Yeah.
fight that's not for a title.
You don't think he's the kind of guy to do that, or you think he
No,
is
I think he is. I think he
Yeah.
is the kind of guy to do that. But I don't know if the UFC's the kind of company to risk that. Like, it's like, Volk, unless you think he's going to relinquish his belt to take on, and not, I don't think he would do that. I think first of all, I don't think he would relinquish his belt. I think if Volk moves up, he's not relinquishing his belt. And because of course, it'd be better to be a double champ, and everyone wants to be a double champ. And on top of that, it's like if you don't relinquish your belt, why would you fight for a non-title fight? It just wouldn't make sense. I don't think the UFC would ever consider it. Volkanovski is not like, he's not Colby. He's not going to be like put in a main event just because he's going to be put in a main event for a title fight, for like the peak, who's the champion, who's the best in the world. That's where Volkanovski is going to be fighting, but he's not going to be fighting Poirier or Gaethje for, a fun
He could
fight.
fight for the BMF belt.
I mean, like he could, but I just think he doesn't have that like he technically is more of a BMF than fucking Gaethje and Poirier, because Volk actually fights often and Poirier and Gaethje aren't like, ducking. They're ducking people basically. But the UFC doesn't look at Volk like that's not his brand,
Yeah,
So,
I think the thing
but
about
either
Volk,
it's not really Gaethje or it was really only Masvidal and Diaz's brand.
Mhm.
As far as I'm concerned, like Volk is more of a BMF than both of those guys.
Yeah. I think the thing about Volk, though, like I feel like if he's gonna move up again, I think he's I think he's vacating the belt. Like I don't think the UFC will let him hold on to the belt again. Because they don't like you really think they want to keep doing these interim championships? Like
No, I don't think that's a good point. Like I could definitely see the the UFC not
especially
really
because he's
wanting.
not like a huge star, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like if it was
exactly.
Conor McGregor, like they
And
may.
either way, it's like you know, if he does lose his, if he does lose, like he could always drop down to featherweight and challenge for the title. Like
Yeah.
he'll have an argument for that too. So
I
I think that's a good point. But either way, I think that, you know, whatever happens if he wins, like it just opens up the gates. He's got 3 opponents that are potential opponents.
I want to see, because I also think that, like, you do what you did to Islam Makhachev. Like, imagine what he would do to Poirier. Imagine what he would do to Gaethje. Like, that's why I think it's a safer bet in this case. Like, I in most cases, like, you'd be like, okay, why would a champion like vacate his belt just to and fight a contender before, unless it's for the belt instead of just the champion? And I think it's just because I think Poirier or Gaethje is easy money for Volk at this point. So like I don't, and I think it's a big
I
fight.
mean, I'd love to see those fights. Like I
Both
genuinely would like
fights.
to see those fights, but I just cannot get hyped for. I want to see Volk fight the best, bro. I don't want to see him fight, you know, Cagey and Poirier. I want to see him fight Charles. I want to see him fight Islam. I want to see him fight Topuria. I don't want to see him in like Gagey and Poirier. Just the whole BMF thing makes it even worse. They're basically like participation trophies.
Yeah, they are. I
It's,
mean,
they are. They're participation trophies,
I
man.
mean, the only reason they did that was because you got to have a title fight for every,
I know, but it just
Yeah.
it also is just the facts on their whole career. It's like they're giving them title shots because they feel bad for them, and oh, they had a good fight with Connor. Or Gagey is a really violent guy. Like, who gives a fuck if Gagey's violent? Like, why are we gonna give him another title shot, or why are we gonna give him a crack at Volk? You know, like I want to see Volk and Charles. I want to see Volk and Islam, not those
Dude,
motherfuckers.
Volk Charles, bro, that would be
Exactly, man.
that
I'd
would be.
want to see that. I'd probably pick Charles to beat him too.
You'd pick Charles to beat Volk?
I
No.
would. Now, to be fair, like it'd be a close fight. It'd be a very close fight. I just think Charles, if he hurt Volk, he would finish him. And I think that if Charles gets Volk down after he hurts him, he submits him. I think Charles is different level than anyone else when it comes to finding a submission. But it'd be a close fight, and I think Volk could win too. So that's like, again, I don't give a fuck about Dustin and Gagey. Like, I'd love to see them fight, but not any of the top guys. Like, because they're not championship material, and they're close. They're up there, but they're not. And it's like I just feel like it's a waste. I know both of them have holes in their game, and it's with the grappling, and all those guys can grapple. Volk can take Dustin down and beat his ass too. You know,
So
I think
maybe
Volk would be the first. Volk would get his first ever submission against Justin Gagey. Basically, literally. I mean, like if Volk's gonna get a submission over anyone, it's probably Gagey. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I also think if Volk moves up, like, I mean, you just don't want to keep. I know Volk doesn't cut a crazy amount of weight, but like as you get older, you get bigger. He did the Islam camp, so I'm sure he did gain some muscle. And like if he defends this belt, I mean, what more does he really need to? I feel like there's a certain point just where it's just like becomes super risky. Like you cemented your legacy. Now, like you can have some fun, and I feel like Volk just sees going up to lightweight as being more fun for him.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
even if he loses to Islam,
Still
like
undefeated at featherweight.
yeah, but and he could just fight a Poirier or a Gaethje and get a win there, and he'll be like a contender
Yeah,
at lightweight at the end of his
yeah.
career. Like that'll help his legacy too. Like, you know what I mean? Like you get a win. Like I know Poirier and Gaethje aren't anything special, but
But
you
if you
get a
beat them,
win
it still looks decent on
yeah,
your
it
record.
still is good on your resume. You get a win against Beneil Dariush and still looks good. Charles Oliveira, what if they fight like down the road? That's great on his legacy too. Like one of the best lightweights ever. Like I think that's something Volk would be really interested in, and I would love to see it. So I'm hoping. I am hoping. I don't know if I'm hoping because I do want to see Topuria versus Volk. But
Yeah,
at the same time, like I think it'd be so interesting to see Islam and Volk again. I think Volk versus any of those top guys,
Charles.
even
Yeah.
Charles. If Charles wins, be super. Yeah, I honestly I would prefer Volk to move up.